The wisdom within. Sachio awoke before dawn, as he did every morning. After washing and dressing quietly, he stepped outside into the cool, dark morning. The moon was still faintly glowing as the sky began to lighten. Sachio paused a moment, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. The world was perfectly still, not a leaf stirring in the gentle breeze. Sachio cherished this tranquil time, before the day's bustle began. After a moment of standing in stillness, Sachio picked up his rake and began tending the pebbled pathway that wound through the temple gardens. Raking the small stones into neat lines helped calm his mind and focus his attention on this singular task. When he had finished raking, Sachio gently swept the path clean. The soft swishing of each pass of the broom relaxed his body and settled his thoughts. By the time he was done, hints of orange touched the horizon as the sun began its ascent. Sachio went inside and joined his fellow monks in the meditation hall. Sitting tall but relaxed on his cushion, Sachio returned his awareness to his breath. With each inhalation and exhalation, he noticed whatever arose. Then let it go. Thoughts, sounds, sensations, they coalesced and dissolved like clouds moving across the sky. When the bell sounded, Sachio opened his eyes, feeling grounded and at peace. After chanting sutras with the other monks, Sachio headed to the kitchen to help prepare breakfast. He chopped vegetables and brewed tea mindfully, not letting his attention drift. As he went through his day, taking meals in silence, gardening, studying ancient texts, Sachio aimed to be fully present for each activity. When his mind did wander, he gently escorted his attention back to the task at hand. Late in the afternoon, Sachio's work was complete. He retreated to the small hut behind the temple, where he lived in solitude. After preparing a simple meal of rice, lentils, and steamed greens, Sachio settled onto his straw mat to eat slowly and meditatively. When he was finished, Sachio sat in stillness watching the sun set over the distant mountains. The sky turned brilliant hues of orange and pink, then deepened to purples as dusk fell. When it became too dark to see, Sachio lit a single candle. In its flickering light, his gaze fell on the worn mahogany meditation table. Sachio reverently ran his hand over its smooth surface. This table had belonged to his grandfather, who had passed down his lifetime of wisdom to Sachio before dying 2 winters ago at the ripe old age of 92. Sachio's grandfather had lived his life in this temple, proudly upholding its teachings of compassion, mindfulness, and selflessness. Sachio deeply missed his reassuring presence and gentle spiritual guidance. But he also knew his grandfather would not have wanted him to grieve. He was surely at peace, his spirit living on within Sachio and all he had taught him. Feeling suddenly weary, Sachio decided to retire early tonight. After washing up, he unrolled his futon on the floor. He sat zazen for a while, focusing on the flame as it danced and swayed, until his eyelids grew heavy. Sachio blew out the candle and lay down, replaying the day's events in his mind. He had tried his best to meet everything with equanimity, to cultivate insight and compassion. There was always more to learn, but Sachio felt grateful for the opportunity to walk this path. With this sense of peace, he drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Sachio went about his routine as usual. But when his duties were complete after lunch, one of the elder monks, Sato, approached him. "Come with me," Sato said. "There is something I want to show you." Curious, Sachio followed as Sato led him through a winding path deep into the forest behind the temple. Birds sang and flitted between the trees. Dappled sunlight filtered down through the canopy. After about 15 minutes, the path opened up into a small clearing. In the center stood a tiny wooden cabin, its roof layered with moss. "What is this place?" Sachio asked. Sato smiled. "Somewhere to go when one needs solitude for spiritual practice. Now it will be yours to use whenever you wish." Sachio stepped inside the cabin. A single room held just a straw mat, meditation cushion, low table, and lantern. A window at the far end framed a picturesque view of a gurgling stream and trees. "This is perfect," Sachio said, bowing deeply to Sato. "Thank you." Sato placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "Use it well. Not just for sitting quietly, but for finding the wisdom within." Then he turned and departed down the forest path. Over the next week, Sachio retreated to the cabin often. Each time he sat in stillness, insights arose. He saw how he struggled against hardships rather than accepting change. He realized how comparisons to others weakened his self-confidence. Bit by bit, his attachment and judgments began to fall away. On the seventh day, a powerful storm gathered after noon. Wind lashed the trees and dark clouds swirled as Sachio made his way to the cabin. Inside, he sat calmly, listening to the roar of the wind and hammering of rain on the roof. Flashes of lightning threw the interior into sharp relief, followed by cracks of thunder. As Sachio observed within, he saw clearly the storms that sometimes arose in his own mind: anger, jealousy, fear. When unpleasant emotions surged up, his impulse was to suppress them through pure will. Yet this only made the inner storms worse, like trying to fight lightning with one's bare hands. Instead, these forces of nature had to be allowed to run their course without struggle. The key was mindfulness, observing feelings come and go without reacting or judging. Like any storm, emotions lost their power when met with open acceptance. As the tempest passed and the skies cleared, Sachio's heart became very still. Though the world without was infinitely complex, his role was simple: cultivate compassion, walk in awareness, trust in the way. Any illusion of control was mere delusion. All he could do was live in harmony with reality. Sachio emerged from the cabin feeling part of everything: the trees still dripping, birds singing triumphantly, fresh scent of the earth renewed. He had tapped into a deep wellspring of inner peace that would always sustain him. From then on, Sachio settled into a steady life of service at the temple. He went through each day mindfully but without unnecessary strain, finding joy in relating to others and helping however he could. His wise grandfather's spirit seemed to live on in him, guiding him down the path of compassion. Though Sachio's existence was simple, he felt immense gratitude for it. Waking before dawn to meditate in stillness, laughing with his fellow monks over meals, sitting in his cabin immersed in nature's beauty and wisdom, he wanted for nothing. This was enough. When his time on earth ended many decades later, Sachio's being faded calmly and gently as a sunset. Those around his deathbed saw only joy and peace in his final moments. A serene smile lingered on Sachio's face, reflecting the tranquility and understanding he carried deep within him. This Zen story inspired me to reflect on living mindfully, finding inner peace, and trusting in the wisdom that exists within all of us. Sachio's journey represents the human struggle to understand ourselves and live in harmony with life's inherent impermanence. Though external conditions always change, equanimity and compassion can be cultivated through spiritual practice. Sachio's gradual awakening reminds us to appreciate simple moments and not to grasp after false perceptions of control. By walking the path with awareness and humility, we too can uncover the stillness at the core of our being.